Today I am doing a requested video which is showing you how I use my NLT Illustrated Study Bible. So just a little heads up, I do have my 1-year-old with me. So I'm trying to film this video because I am determined that I'm going to get this video up on Monday. But to do that, I have to do it when I've got my little one with me. So hopefully there'll be no interruptions, but yes. We'll try my best to edit out anything that interrupts us. So today I thought we would study Revelation. Why not? Let's go all in. So what I'm going to do is just show you the kind of techniques that I use with this particular Bible, but I think it applies to all study Bibles, of how I do Bible study. The great thing about a study Bible is when you start a book, it gives you a lot of information around the context of the book at the time. So if I'm going to study a book, I always like to read what it says first of all about it. So this tells us that Revelation was probably written in the AD 90s, which means that it was written 90 years after Jesus was born, and it says it could have been written though in the 60s. During these periods, Christians experienced increasing pressure and persecution, and by the 90s, Jews had condemned Christianity in the councils and then reported Christians to Roman authorities as religious deviants who didn't deserve protection under the religious licensing laws. So basically, the Jewish people were rejecting Christianity and the Romans were demanding absolute loyalty to the emperor. So persecution began, and yeah, it was just not a great time for the Christians. So then I always read the summary, which just gives you information about the book in itself and then the meaning and message, and you also get an outline of the book. So what happens in chapter 1 all the way down to what happens in chapter 22, and then along the bottom you also get a timeline of what was happening historically, who was emperor, and all that kind of stuff going on there as well. But as you can see, it is really useful to read all of that information first before you get into the book, because then you've got a little bit of background knowledge and you're not just going in blind, because Revelation in particular is quite a complex book and you will not understand it unless you've got Old Testament knowledge or you're willing to flip back and forth between Revelation and the Old Testament. Genesis in particular has a lot of information in there which relates to Revelation, so you can't just read Revelation and know what it's talking about. You've really got to delve all the way back to the Old Testament to get a lot of the symbolism and references. I highly recommend, if you want to study Revelation, a study by Chuck Missler, which I will link down below. He taught me so much about Revelation. It's a complicated study, so you need to put your smarty pants hats on when you're listening to him, because he does use big words and things, but my goodness, he opened my eyes to so much that I never would have understood if I was just reading Revelation by myself. One of the amazing things about Revelation is it's the only book in the Bible which promises a blessing to its reader. So in chapter 1 verse 3 it says, "God blesses the one who reads the words of this prophecy to the church, and he blesses all who listen to its message and obey what it says, for the time is near." So this is the only book in the Bible that promises you a blessing if you actually read it, listen to it and obey its message. So if you have never read Revelation before, I highly recommend you get your Bibles out and dig deep into Revelation, because God promises you a blessing if you do that. When it comes to actually doing the study, I like to try and make things look pretty because it makes it more inviting for me to read. So I've just written Revelation along the top there, and then I've taken out my pink highlighter and I've highlighted things that stand out to me. So if I think it's really important, I highlight it and I underline it. As you can see, it's events that must soon take place. So I've highlighted and underlined that, because if that was soon, back in AD 90 or AD 60, how much closer must we be now to these events actually occurring? Then I have highlighted where it says about God's blessing, and again I've underlined where it says the time is near. And then if anything is kind of repeated, I either draw a square around it or I circle it. So this talks about God who is, who always was, and who is still to come. So that is kind of my method of highlighting, and typically, I haven't done it here, but typically I would highlight in purple anything that is about God. So if you get confused on any of the Bible verses, you can come down here and it gives you either references to go read in different books of the Bible or it explains it to you in more detail. So for example, in verse 1, it says, this is a revelation from Jesus Christ. And you might think, what on earth does it mean by a revelation? So then if you come down here, it tells you the word revelation introduces the book's visionary nature as an apocalyptic writing. God communicates his inspired message through the mysterious symbols, numbers, and word pictures from or of Jesus Christ. He is both the source and the main subject of the book. So I use these little notes at the bottom. Whenever I'm reading, I just like to quickly refer back. So you do really need to set time apart for Bible study, because it's not just you quickly reading through and understanding something. You are really spending time trying to understand what that passage is talking about. So to even take a chapter is probably too much. I would maybe, like if I was going to study this, I would probably just do this chunk here. And then if I find that I finished that quickly, then I'll move on to a next chunk, rather than thinking, right, I'm going to study chapter 1 today, because sometimes you get so much out of like 2 verses. So just go verse by verse, get as much out of each verse as you can, and then move on to the next one. So what I like to do is I'll read the verse and then I will read what the study notes say at the bottom here. And then if I need to know any further information, I will use my laptop and I will Google it. You have to be careful where you're getting your information from on Google, because there's a lot of false information out there. There's a lot of opinions out there. You've got to remember that everything you're reading is someone's opinion. It's not fact. So the Bible is the word of God. And the best thing you can do is, before you start your study, ask the Holy Spirit to guide you and to give you the answers and to speak to you through his word, because then he will do that for you, rather than you running to other people and their opinions on the internet. Hello. Oh, bless you. Okay, so other things that I do. Bless you. You okay? Yeah. So other things that I do when I am studying my Bible is I look down here, and this is where you get your cross-references. As you can see, there is a lot of cross-references, and if you're going to really study verse by verse, you want to be reading these cross-references as well. So looking at verse 1 again, it says, this is a revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants the events that must soon take place. He sent an angel to present this revelation to his servant John. So then up here, you can see it references Daniel, John, Luke, and Matthew. So we'll just take the Daniel reference for now. But it says Daniel 2, verse 28 to 29. So if we just hop on back to Daniel, verses 28 and 29, it says, but there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the future. Now I will tell you your dream and the visions you saw as you lay on your bed. While your majesty was sleeping, you dreamed about coming events. He who reveals secrets has shown you what is going to happen. So it's just confirming there that God reveals secrets to people, as he did to this king, and then he revealed to Daniel what those dreams meant and gave him the interpretation. So it's just showing us other times when God has revealed prophetic secrets to people in the past. So then you would go down and read all of these different Bible verses, and it would just give you a little bit more knowledge about what you're reading. So I love to do that, because then you get a really good well-rounded knowledge from other parts of the Bible backing up what you're reading at that moment, and it saves you so much time because they literally have already cross-referenced it for you. I think nearly every Bible has cross-references in, even Bibles that aren't study Bibles. So when you see them, don't just ignore them. Go to those verses and read what it's saying, because it will just help you with your understanding. Then other things that I love about this Bible is that it gives you other information pages. So the second chapter of Revelation is all about the 7 churches. So these are really important letters, because these are actually written to the churches of the time, so we can learn a lot from these letters. So it gives you a little bit of information about the letters, and then it gives you a map here just showing you where each of the churches are, so you don't have to do all that searching. It's all just here for you. I definitely use these a lot when I see names like this one, the Church of Ephesus. I'm like, right, where is that? And then I can find it here. It just gives you a lovely little bit of background information. Another thing that I like to do is post-it notes with information on. So what I've done here is from the Chuck Missler study. I've created a table which shows which of these churches have these things. This might mean nothing to you if you haven't read the book of Revelation, but if you do read it, this will make sense to you of what these actually are. And then down here, I've got the type of church that they are. So I got this from Chuck Missler as well. So Ephesus was the apostolic church. Smyrna was the persecuted church. Pergamos is an example of the married church. Thyatira, medieval. Sardis, denominational. Philadelphia, missionary. And Laodicea was the apostate church. And then I've also just compared the churches of what Jesus talks about in Revelation to the churches that Paul wrote to in his letters. So they do share themes. So when I find out extra information like that, I just stick it on a post-it note into my actual Bible, so then I've got it there for reference. But Chuck Missler does have his study notes on the internet, which I will also link down below because he gives lots and lots of lovely information. But I'll link that down below as well, so it's really useful. And then you can see here where I've drawn a box around where things are repeated. So it says here, anyone with ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he is saying to the churches. And then again, and then again. So I just kind of box off things that are repeated because then it makes it really obvious when I come back to revisit that is what's going on. And then I like to just write little notes to myself. He is coming soon, I've put, because it actually says here, I am coming soon. There it is again, anyone with ears to hear. And I also like to read these little sections here because it just gives you a little bit of context and again puts real life images in your mind of how things looked at the time that these people were living in. So this is an example of the theatre in Ephesus, which is like other Greek theatres. It was built on a hill so the structure could have tiers of seats and still have a beautiful background. Situated next to the main shopping area, this theatre is known to have seated 24,000 people in 3 tiers. And then it goes on to show you about symbolic numbers. So there's a lot of symbolic numbers in the Bible, in particular in Revelation. So it just gives you a little bit of understanding about what all of these numbers mean. So number 1 is God's oneness. Number 7 you see a lot in the Bible, and that is an example of perfection or divine completeness. Number 5 usually symbolizes human completeness, and so on and so forth. So it goes through all of the numbers that you find in Revelation and gives you understanding of what those numbers mean. And then I also create post-it notes which just summarize for myself everything that's going on. So in chapter 6, there's 7 seals of judgment. So I've just written down here what they are, so I don't have to keep reading through and trying to find them all. I've just got them all here of what happens when Jesus breaks each of those seals. Then if I look and I think, oh yeah, what was the green horse symbolizing again? I can just go straight to chapter 6, verse 8 and see here that its rider was named Death and his companion was the grave. These two were given authority over a fourth of the earth to kill with a sword and famine and disease and wild animals. So a quarter of the earth was killed by this green horse. And I've done the same thing there with the 7 trumpet judgments. I've just written down what all of them are. When each trumpet goes off, what happens. And then again, I've just done some post-it notes on things that are going on in the book about the woman, the red dragon, the man-child. But then I've put this because you can start to get really daunted by it. But God is in control. He allows the beast to wage war. He gives authority to the beast. So we don't need to worry about it. God's in control and he's allowing this to happen. So here I've just highlighted where it's talking about the beast, but it was allowed. It was given authority. It was allowed. It was given authority. So God is in control. Yes, the beast is running amok, but God is the one who is allowing it to happen. And then I've just kind of gone through and highlighted and underlined anything that is important to me. This bit here just talks about the Antichrist, gives you a little bit of information about him, the plagues, the 7 bowls of wrath. Like I say, I just pop things on post-it notes as I go through just to summarize things. This shows you all of the different Roman emperors. Then when you get to the end of Revelation, we see that Jesus defeats the Antichrist and his false prophet, the beast. And the dragon is Satan, and I've put see the 1,000 years. And then I would go here and I know that I can read all about what happens to Satan. I've just written kind of little summaries. And then this Bible also goes through and just has some lovely images and more information for you. Okay, so I hope that has helped you just kind of understand how I use this study Bible. If you've got any questions, please just message me over on Instagram. I am just at the Faith Lady, same as this channel, and I'll be happy to go through things with you, answer things, show you my Bible more in depth if that's what you want. And yeah, just thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!
I lose my breath whenever I see you. Stole my heart, what is it that you do? My life was great till you added color.